It's time to talk predictions before we leave you on our opening Monday Night Football of the season. And we'll kick off. God, we've got some box fresh trainers going on, haven't we? We'll kick off with the champions. And who's going to surprise us? Karen?
Champions, I've gone for Man City, so it's not a surprise. Sorry, Dave, I've just killed it there. But yeah, I just think too strong and the experience. I do think it'll be a problem if Haaland was to get injured. Kevin De Bruyne is now out injured, but I just think the squad has got enough for me.
Jamie, you've also gone Manchester City. Is there no way that having won the treble, there might be just that drop off in motivation?
I just look at Pep Guardiola, and he's been a manager now for maybe 10, what is it, just over 10 years, a decade. I'm not sure they've ever had a season off where his team have not got round 90 points or just above. He's that intense. His teams don't drop off, so I don't see them dropping off. I think someone's got to go above them in terms of get to their level rather than Manchester City dropping down to mid-80 points. I mean, they got 89 last season, and to be honest, first half of the season, it didn't look like the real Manchester City. I think if they get back to them normal selves, you're talking another probably 5 or 6 points this season. And I just think that's just a bridge too far for the teams. I mean, Arsenal, I think, have recruited well, but I just still look at Haaland up front, and I just don't think Arsenal have got anyone else in that category.
We were talking about Pep Guardiola, weren't we? 11 titles in 14 seasons, I think it was.
Yeah.
Gary, you went out on a bit of a limb last year with Arsenal, in the sense that you were very happy to say they weren't going to win the title, but
I wasn't happy to say it.
Well, you were asked about it, and you were quite bold.
Yeah, I was adamant. I didn't think they would, but I wasn't.
So why do you think they will this time? What's changed for you?
I think, I'm banking on 3 things, but to be fair, none are certain, because I take on board what Karen and Carragher have said about the fact that City just deliver year in, year out. Post-treble, a little bit of no signs of that against Burnley. The difficulties and challenges of a season when you're playing in Super Cups, World Club Championships, that might just bring a little bit more confusion. They haven't got the biggest squad. And I thought just last year with Haaland, I mean, to be fair, Karen's point I take earlier on in the programme, that he doesn't do as much running as he used to when he used to pick up his injuries. But last season, he only missed 3 matches. If he was to miss 10 or 15 that he did miss at Dortmund on average in the last 2 seasons before he came, I think that would be enough to give Arsenal a real chance, because I think Arsenal have improved with Declan Rice, although I think they've just lost Timber, have they, through to an ACL, which...
We're not sure how long.
And that's a big blow. So Havertz, Timber and Rice are very good signings. They do improve them enormously, but obviously losing Timber, it was City I was banking on getting an injury, not Arsenal.
Gary, you know, in terms of when you won the treble, a lot of people say it's about the motivation, but is it more the motivation that you don't want somebody else to have it? Do you know what I mean? Like, I would now look at, if I was Manchester City and saw Arsenal making noise after winning the Community Shield, I don't want them to have it.
Yeah.
That's more the motivation, that I don't want you to have it, as opposed to I've already had
question.
2 or 3
What is it
before.
that drives you on?
We won the league the year after we won the treble. I think it's probably one of the poorest Premier Leagues that season, being honest with you. We won it by, I think, about 18 points or something like that. But there's no doubt we weren't at the level and the edge, that little bit of the edge that you talk about in sport that gets you to the very top. Didn't have that the season after, probably because we probably forgot what it took to actually get to the point of the treble, whereby that previous 4 or 5 years in the Champions League, where we'd really suffered in semi-finals and quarter-finals, where you think now you've won it, you have that sort of right to be there again and compete and do it again, and we forgot what it took. And that can happen, and it's natural that you just have that little bit. I mean, what Manchester City did last year was football utopia. So I think that in terms of that, I think that's why there might be a little bit of a dip off, but we still won the league. In terms of what keeps you going every single day, so Alex Ferguson's greatest quality was that he was able to get 20 players, 24 players every single year, day in, day out, to give their very best every single day and never give in. The talent he would take care of. He would say, we choose you to be at this club, so don't worry about the skill, don't worry about the talent. You've got that. You just give me that other bit, which is the actual fight, the spirit, the attitude, and the never giving in. And the rest of it will take care of itself. And to be fair to the players, they bought into that mantra and they delivered every single day. And we never stepped off, win, lose or draw. Yeah, you might say that we lost games. Of course we did, but that's the Premier League. It's the nature of football. But we did deliver on a consistent basis.
I think when you talk about Alex Ferguson, we always associate him, and rightly, you know, in press conferences, he'd be on the front foot, he's seen as demonstrative on the side of the pitch, quite aggressive, and you can imagine him dealing with players aggressively. If someone steps out of line, he sorts it out. We don't really associate Guardiola like that, but he is that. He is. You see him come on the pitch with Haaland, but in terms of how he deals with players, there's a lot of change in that Manchester City squad and team. What he did with Cancelo halfway through the season, where everyone's thinking, why would you lose a player where you are now? I know he must be a problem behind the scenes, but who are you going to play left back? He can cover at right back. He ends up putting John Stones at right back, moving him into midfield. That change only came about towards the end of the season, maybe on the back of Cancelo moving on. But to make that decision because he wasn't happy with him behind the scenes on the training pitch shows how ruthless he was. And when you think about the two top managers probably we've had in Premier League history, those two, very ruthless managers.
They don't compromise on control. If they think someone's challenging that control or someone's not quite towing the line, they have to come out on top in that battle.
Control is a key word, isn't it? Second, third and fourth then. I think you've all gone with the same top four. And of course, this year we're talking about potentially a top five. Well, I think it is a top five. We'll be playing in the Champions League next season. But we've gone with four for now. All gone with the same clubs. Yes, Arsenal, Liverpool and Manchester United. But effectively in a different order.
From what? This is the predictions?
No, hang on a second. Last week on something else
on
something else that we did. You put Liverpool above Manchester United. You've switched your teams round.
Well, Liverpool got to buy a holding midfield player. I think Man United got to sign one as well.
You can't change your predictions in a week. I mean, seriously.
He's talking about putting Newcastle in there earlier on today. We know that Caicedo is now a Chelsea player. Maybe Romeo Lavia is going to be a Chelsea player as well. Might that change things? Could they sneak into a top four?
They could. I mean, they haven't got Champions League as well, but I think it's goals. Again, that's why I've put probably Liverpool in there. I think goals, they've got a magnificent front six in essence. I'm still, the jury's out for me on Chelsea, how clinical those front players are. I don't really, again, similar for the last couple of seasons, don't hang my hat on them and go in, that player's going to get me 20, 30 goals, whereas I have significant evidence on that for Liverpool, so not Chelsea just yet.
I think Chelsea, when I look at sort of both ends of the pitch, talking about goals, but also the goalkeeper they just brought in, obviously Kepa's moved on now, but the goalkeeper they brought on, but I think Brighton were happy to move him on. He wasn't quite even in the Brighton team, so I still don't think that's quite enough. And then the fact that...
They might sign another one.
Well, listen, they might sign... Listen, Chelsea probably will, but you think of the reaction after the game yesterday, it was really positive towards Chelsea, and we did the same piece, and rightly so, they played really well. But it is still Chelsea at home playing against the Liverpool team who had no real defensive midfield player. So, we're critical of Liverpool after the game, but you're going away to Chelsea, which is not the easiest team in the world. But I still think Chelsea are a work in progress between now and the end of the season. I don't expect them to get top four, but I think obviously Pochettino will improve them.
But you all think Chelsea fifth, which would mean a place in the Champions League next season, and Newcastle is sixth, apart from Gary, who's gone for Aston Villa. Are you sticking with that after the opening weekend?
It's bold, isn't it? Because I made a prediction last week that Villa would finish sixth, so I'm stubborn. I've stuck with it. No, to be honest, I thought Newcastle was sensational on Saturday. What I've imagined, again, you're predicting things that you don't know are going to happen. I think Newcastle could have a really good run in the Champions League. I think they're the type of team that could catch teams off guard. I think some of the players will really be motivated by that Champions League.
But don't they have squad strength now as well, though?
Look, the Champions League, when you experience it for the first time as a club, I've obviously been in it before, but it's in the new sort of era, I think it does consume you so much, because if you particularly get through to the knockout phases, your players' heads turn. We saw Newcastle last season around that Carabao Cup final, how those same players really dipped for about 5-6 weeks. They're going to have a Carabao Cup final equivalent potentially every few weeks in the Champions League. To me, that could distract them. So I've just imagined that the club are not going to handle the Champions League as well, and it could distract them. If you were talking about a straight fight between Villa and Newcastle, Newcastle are a better team. I know that Villa are in the Europa League, but I think Unai Emery has sort of navigated that journey before many times. It's not a competition that really consumes you as much, I don't think, as a Champions League
I think Aston Villa will go further in Europe than Newcastle will. I mean, Newcastle could drop into the Europa League if they finish third in the competition, but I think we underestimate Newcastle, and include myself in that, the fact that I haven't put them in the top four, because I think we all keep looking at them thinking, they can't keep this going. And then it's only one game this season, but that was a carbon copy of what we saw last season. The high energy. It reminds me of Liverpool sort of 4 or 5 years ago when Jurgen Klopp's first couple of years, and it was just high energetic, pressing the ball, people with pace all over the pitch.
And the quality.
But they've got quality. But I said this before the season started, even the signings they've brought in, they're not the signings that Liverpool, Chelsea, Manchester United would make. You know, you're talking about a player, Livramento, who's come in, who's been injured. He's at Southampton. Harvey Barnes has just left a team and got relegated. Tonali's one game, he's done really well. He's played at a high level, I get that. But they're still not. They weren't in competition with the other top teams for those players, if you understand what I mean. And then they come in, and I describe them as Eddie Howe type of signings, where they look good players, but he can make them very good players. He is a top coach.
The one thing I absolutely agree, because the performance from Newcastle on Saturday compared to the performance of, say, Liverpool for parts of that game yesterday and United tonight, the streets ahead, Newcastle.
Who's going down? Let's see if we've got any consensus on this category. Everyone has gone for Luton and Sheffield United. Karen and Jamie have both gone for Burnley as well. Karen, why would you add Burnley to that mix? I think a lot of people have, fairly or not, tipped Luton and Sheffield United to go straight back down, but you think it might be a clean sweep?
Yeah, I mean, I love what Company's done. The shift in what he's done to that side in 12 months is extraordinary. Honestly, it's brilliant. I just think if he doesn't sometimes change his philosophy, you'll see big scorelines like we did. I know it was against Manchester City, but I think the other teams around have got that little bit more Premier League nous, how to get out of tight situations. And I think Company will still play his philosophy. And I've got nothing against that, but I think it might catch them out a little bit.
What are you laughing at?
I've just realised he's got Burnley going down. He said Wolves about 2 hours ago. He's changed his mind since they played
tonight.
tonight.
We said you could change. We said you could change.
You're the clown who's just watched Newcastle back to Aston Villa and said Aston Villa. That's just ridiculous.
I'm sure he said Wolves. He's changed his predictions.
Why have you gone for Bournemouth then?
Oh, it's
Citing new coach.
There's no science behind it whatsoever. It's a complete guess. No, there's probably 4 teams. You're talking about Notts Forest, Bournemouth, Burnley, obviously with Sheffield United, Luton, and there's one more that I was thinking of before, and I can't think who they are now. Anyway, yeah, there's probably like literally 3-4 teams that you think could possibly go down, and I've just gone for one of them. I mean, ultimately, it could be Burnley, it could be Bournemouth. You don't know. I mean, it's such a long way to go. I mean, we
37 games.
We looked at these predictions as if we get it wrong, we're like really bad at football. It's like unbelievable.
You've pulled me up 3 times on mine.
No, I pulled you up for changing your actual opinion within the last half hour.
This is the real predictions.
No, hang on a minute.
2 weeks ago.
You said Wolves 2 hours ago.
No,
not 2 weeks. Oh my God, you said Wolves afternoon.
You got new information. You changed your mind.
Well, you watched Wolves tonight and thought, oh, fancy them.
Yeah. Coming in done a really good job.
We'll do them again in 2 weeks once the transfer window's closed, don't worry. Top scorer, I'm not sure there's going to be too much change to this, though. Gary and Jamie think Haaland again, got 36 goals last year. Why do you think Salah's going to get more, Karen?
I just wanted a different name, to be honest, Dave. No, I think, I know I go back to it. It's just whether he stays fit or not, Haaland. And I just think Salah needs to have a really big season again. He does every year, but I just went with Salah. I like the Liverpool front 6. Maybe they'll change a little bit more, but I just think Salah, that was just a gut feeling.
We talked about Haaland earlier, so let's not revisit that. Let's go straight to impact signing. I'm seeing these the first time that you are, so I do apologise. Karen's gone on Nana, Jamie Maddison and Gary. Declan Rice, why is he going to make a difference for Arsenal?
Well, because I chose Arsenal to win the league, and I thought, well, I had to choose an Arsenal player who's going to have an impact to take them that sort of extra step, which is a huge step. And I thought Declan Rice could be that player. You know, you think if Arsenal get out, what I hope this season that Arsenal get into that last 10 game sort of spot again, up against hopefully, 3 or 4 teams. Hopefully Manchester United are in there, Manchester City are in there. We're having a real battle. So you can see how they handle it this time compared to last time. And I think with Declan Rice, they would be stronger in that midfield and sort of more powerful. And so I thought I put him just purely because of the fact I've gone for Arsenal to win the league.
Is James Maddison going to help Spurs with Ange Postecoglou cover the absence of Harry Kane, Jamie?
Yeah, I think on the back of Kane going, he's taking his shirt. I think he had the armband in the second half yesterday. It almost feels like he's one of the main players at Spurs, and he's only had 1 game. He loves that responsibility. I love seeing him interviewed. He's got that little bit of cheekiness about him. Will it be a difficult season for Spurs? You'd expect so because of the situation with Harry Kane. But I like listening to the manager. He comes across really well in his press conferences, always seems to get the tone right. I mean, they had a decent, performance yesterday, decent result. Maddison was involved in that, set one of the goals up. And I think if we see anything from Spurs or anyone's the man to sort of drag them to Europa League places, maybe challenging for the top 4, I think that might be a little bit tough.
Spurs need defenders. Spurs need defenders, or else they're going to really struggle.
Just signed Mickey van der Ven, who went straight into the team at the weekend.
I think that, honestly, I think they can see goals left, right and centre.
We'll see them on Saturday against Manchester United. Karen went for Onana, but I want to ask you about your one to watch, Karen, because I think you've gone with a Brighton player, Mitoma.
You love him, Karen, don't you?
I absolutely love him. As a former winger, his decision making is exceptional. His dribbling ability, look, is second to none. And I think he's just the next one. It will be a matter of time before he's off to somewhere else, and Brighton are getting a massive paycheck from him. I don't understand why, well, maybe because they're so desperate to keep hold of him. But from a winger to winger, I'm just mesmerised by him. I really am. And I think it's his decision making. He's just when to pass, when to dribble. It might sound basic, but I tell you what, we see many times where a lot of wingers get it wrong, and including myself, I did. But he just always seems to make the right decision. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's the next big money move.
They don't hide behind the fact that they are happy to sell players, but they'll only do it at the right price. And when it suits them, they're not going to sell everybody at the same time.
But they've also got to have that replacement come in, and they're really big on that recruitment. They'll let people go. I mean, they let Basuma go because they had Caicedo. Now Caicedo's gone. Who's going to be that replacement for them? So it's that conveyor belt. But the thing is, what we've always said, it's happened to Southampton, at times it's happened to Liverpool. Like when you let players go, you don't want to, it's more Southampton, I would say. When you sell players, you don't want to fall down, because there comes a point where you can't keep finding these gems, because what happens is when you go and try and sign a player, other clubs go, we'll whack another 10 million on because Brighton are interested in our gem that maybe we haven't seen what they've seen him. So they have to be maybe a bit smarter moving forward as well.
Maybe they might. So, they have to keep selling, because they have to keep making room in their squad, in their team, for the ones they've already signed to keep that conveyor belt going. Interesting that Gary went for Bournemouth to be relegated, but Jamie, you've gone for their new manager, Iraola, as your one to watch. Why is that?
Yeah, because he come in on the back of a lot of criticism for the club on the back of them getting rid of Gary O'Neill. Gary O'Neill's back in a job now at Wolves, but listen, Gary O'Neill and Bournemouth did brilliantly last season to stay in the league. We probably treated them at the start of last season the way we were talking about Luton or Sheffield United this season. They're a sad to go down. There's two other places up for grabs, so they did a great job. But he's got a great reputation coming out of Spain, where he's done getting a team promoted and then finishing in the middle of La Liga. And a lot of people, Gary and other people will, tip them to go down. But I think they've got a manager, or looking at a manager that I think a lot of clubs are looking at, who's maybe one of the up-and-coming managers and could have a really bright future. And I'm interested to see how he does. And that's why I haven't tipped Bournemouth to go down.
Onana was Karen's impact signing, and also your player to watch, Gary. Has he started well?
Yeah, I think, he made some really good saves towards the end. Obviously, that moment with the penalty will be one that makes probably the headlines tomorrow. But I think that, if it hadn't have been for him tonight, I thought he made 2 or 3 really good saves. We know he can play, but the big question before the game was, is he going to sort of keep the ball out the back of the net? And I think that tonight, he's got a big personality, and you need a big personality in that position.
Thank you very much. That's our predictions complete. You can make a note of those and see where we get to in a couple of weeks' time.